Hey, it's Liz from Darn Happy Accident, and I want to talk to you today about holiday parties and weddings and gatherings and brain injury. How those kind of things can actually all work together into a successful event that you can enjoy, at least for a short time. The friends and family around you, the love in the air. So these are the things I've compiled after trial and error and after looking up information to try to find, I don't know, different ways of handling this stuff. So I've kind of broken it up into two sections. One for the person with the brain injury and one for the host or hostess who's hosting someone who has a brain injury. So the first part, the person with the brain injury, I feel like we have a really big responsibility to bring our best to a situation, especially if something you really want to be there. This condition is super isolating. This condition can be really fluid. The symptoms can change from like minute to minute. So in order to have a successful time, you need to bring your best you. And in order to do that, you need to start with the basics. Make sure you have eaten and you have enough water in you, and really overhydrate at this point, because hunger and thirst can make you really cranky. It can really get your cognitive fuel down low. Make sure you're not waiting to eat at the event, like, because if it's a wedding and dinner's later, you're gonna get past that point where you can handle any little thing. So make sure you eat, you drink, and again, make sure you're medicated beforehand. You need to bring your best baseline your best you. And if you're on some medication, whether it's CBD oil or something else, make sure that it's at that great level when you're going to an event. So just to give yourself an amount of control, make sure that you either block in time for rest or sleep ahead of time, or do all your driving and try to get there early so you can rest, or meditate, because meditation is huge in just calming you down, even if it's for 5 minutes before you walk in the door. The transition times from the parking lot and driving and traffic and blah, and radio and all that to going into an event and switching gears. Sometimes you need to just take a few minutes, meditate, get calm, get centered, get prepared, get control. Those are huge steps in your part of what you can do to bring you to this party. I like to check my edges. That's what I call it when I have to, like, are my clothes making me itchy? Am I uncomfortable? Are these shoes stupid? Make sure that you dress in layers and for comfort. Our thermostats are sometimes off, and in some situations it's hotter or colder. So make sure you dress in layers. Make sure you're comfortable, because you're gonna be a bear if you're not. Make sure that you know going in how much cognitive fuel you have. If you go for the spoon theory, or if you go for the battery theory, where are you at when you walk in? And maybe you can kind of give a heads up to the people you're with, like, I'm a little off my game today, or I'm doing awesome today. So that everyone can kind of gauge how much you can do and what you need. Bring your go bag. If you check my videos before, I have a video about bringing your go bag, and your go bag is just quickly, it is a bag of all those things that soothe you when you're not at home, whether it's eye covers or earplugs or earbuds or meditation music or scents or anything that brings you comfort. And if you check my videos before, I go into detail about everything that should be in this bag that you keep by the door and you take with you whenever you leave the house. That way you can be prepared for almost anything. You know, you can bring yourself as close as you can to being in control of this as you possibly can. So check out that video. I'll try to post it below if I can figure it out. Gather as much information about the party ahead of time. Who's gonna be there? What kind of party is it? Is it like a football party? Is it like a movie night? What are we doing? Is there gonna be a lot of confusion? Is there gonna be a lot of people? Are there people that are gonna be a challenge for me? That's another biggie. If you know that there are people that could potentially be there, ask. Just say, is Aunt Margie gonna be there? Because she smokes and she smells like cigarette smoke and she wears too much perfume. I can't handle that. So that way you can be prepared and be in control. Make sure that you arrange your rides. If the situation arises that you can't handle the party and you need to leave early, make sure the people who you came with are willing to leave when you need to leave. So if that involves you asking the host or hostess, hey, I need a +1 that, can drive me at the drop of a hat, or I have money for an Uber, I can get home, make sure you plan that ahead of time. That way you're not scrambling, that way you're not frustrated, that way you're not pushed way over your limit. Be prepared. Make sure you be kind. I know for me, especially early on, one of the triggers for me was any little bit of resistance I felt, I would get kind of bitchy. Don't tell anyone, but I was kind of cranky and snappy, and I just didn't feel right, and I kind of brought the party down. So make sure that you remember to be kind. Write the letter K on your hand if you need to look down and remind yourself. I know that there's impulse things that go along with brain injuries. I know that we're short of temper and we're short of energy. Sometimes it comes out in the wrong way. So just try to keep it on the forefront, to be kind. If there's a light on that's bothering you, don't just go snap it off and be all hostile because they didn't think of you and they had a light on. Talk to people, reposition yourself, ask anyone if it bothers them if you turn this down or whatever. Just be kind. This is like stuff we tell little kids, but it just got to keep it in the forefront. For me, I know this is going to sound ridiculous. I try to practice being my best. I try to evaluate myself in all sorts of situations when I'm out in the world, to practice being my best, and I keep that in the forefront of my mind. It's like in Harry Potter, I know someone on one of my online boards called people without concussions muggles. I feel like I have to practice dealing with life with the muggles. So just try it and observe yourself, especially in those times where it's not a pressing situation where you're at, your son's wedding. Just practice ahead of time. Visualize a party ahead of time too. That's another way of doing this. Visualize what it's going to feel like, what you are going to feel like. Walk yourself through as much information as you can gather. Just picture it all. That's another great one. If you have a comfort animal, a support animal, any kind of animal, make sure they are welcome. Some people aren't welcoming to those things, and that's a huge component. If you're going to go somewhere, you need to know that your animal is welcome. I know I don't want to get into all the controversy about that and who should and what's legal and all that stuff. Just ask. Make sure you provide, if you're bringing your pet, make sure you're providing food and water and means to get that animal bathroom and all that stuff. Anyways, that's one thing. Another huge component that I've thought of is to come up with a code word for your host or hostess that's this in a nutshell. Okay, it's thank you for inviting me. I can't stay any longer. Can I please have my coat? I really appreciate all this. I need to go right now. My code word is banana split. Banana split means all of that and then some. We can talk about this at some other time, but this isn't a time for discussion. This isn't a time for judgment. This is a time for all my symptoms have been tripped up. I can't stand it another second. Whether it's someone's perfume or flashing lights, or I just don't have it in me today, I'm going. Give me my coat. I'm out of here. Thank you. I love you. No judgment. I did my best. Mwah. Bye. That's a huge one that I think can help out in a lot of situations. Now, if you're a host or hostess with someone who has a brain injury, again, I say thank you for inviting us. Be honest with us. Be honest with who's going to be there. No surprise guests. I have a couple of friends who throw in surprise guests, and that is just so challenging. Think about like if someone's challenging in your life, or if there's a situation where you're uncomfortable and you have to switch up a little, and sometimes you're not ready for that. It takes so much energy from us to do that and to really switch gears. That control is huge for us, and having surprise guests just can make or break it. And it's all about feeling like I can trust you. I mean, our filters are down. Our recall of like social cues and niceties sometimes is off. So trust is huge for us. So that's another component to this. So be honest with us. And we really appreciate that. Spontaneity, that's where this comes in. Spontaneity is no longer in our repertoire. We really need to like gain control. We can be spontaneous, but it takes everything we got, and the results are usually kind of bad to catastrophic depending on our symptoms. So spontaneity, let's be upfront. That's all I have to say about that. If you think of, this might be a little controversial, but it's the only thing I can think of to relate sometimes so people can understand what's going on. If you think of like almost like autism in a way, where things are heightened, our senses are heightened. If you think when you're planning things about that, what senses can be tripped up, like one Yankee Candle away from disaster. I usually am one Yankee Candle away from disaster, where it's just too much stimulation from my olfactory passages and it sets me off. Lights are a challenge. LED lights are a challenge. If you think about it in as far as like, if you are hosting someone with autism, it kind of is the same. That's the only thing I can think of that can relate in a broad category. So it just take that into consideration when you're planning. If you can have a quiet room to escape to if things get too bad, that is so nice. If there's a guest room, if there's a bathroom, if there's just somewhere where we can just go and regroup. Sometimes it can be out in our car, if it's not too far away. It just to regroup can sometimes get us back in the game and get us back in party mode. No judgments. We are judging ourselves so harshly through this whole thing. We are our own worst critics because we're comparing our old selves to our new selves a lot of times. So if you can try to keep the judgment down, it just helps out, and we really appreciate that. Patience. I feel like I'm asking a lot of a host or hostess with stuff like this. It's the only way I can think to ask kindly and be authentic about the struggle. So thanks for being patient with us. If it's a situation where the room can handle like maybe like a small bistro table in the corner with two chairs, that way I can have my back to all the stimulation and all the moving around, then sometimes I can have a longer time and I can have more intimate conversation, and that could help. If it works with the flow of your room, that's something to think about. Or if you want to have someone over and a big event is too much for them, maybe like, hey, why don't you come over and we'll make cookies and we can decorate the tree with it. Or hey, we're gonna have a smaller event and we're gonna do this, and just share the time. That's what it's all about, is connecting with people and sharing the time depending on how much stimulation they can handle. I think the last thing is like, don't make fun of me. I've had some situations, I've had a couple that like I've said a couple little things about what was going on with my speech, or I sounded drunk, or I'm a little stumbly, or I'm having a little hard time, like, moving around a room. And people, sometimes it's unjust, or it's unwelcome. People make fun of me, and that's really hard because I'm raw, I'm vulnerable, I'm comparing myself to my old self. I'm so vulnerable in these situations because everything could set me off, and I can't read a room anymore, not the way I used to. And if I'm in that position and you're making fun of me, or making fun of my speech, or not letting me talk, or everything I say is like, ah ha ha, it hurts. It totally hurts. And that's a challenge. So if I'm making fun of myself, let me do that, but don't pile on. So these are some of the things that I've noticed in my life that can ease my symptoms and make it such a successful time. And I miss parties, I miss friends, I miss all that. I am like one that was the last one to leave a party, and the one to help out and do all that. So when I'm in a situation where I'm welcomed and where I'm treated with respect, then I am so grateful. And happy holidays, and happy weddings, and happy graduations, and happy success in joining the world again and dealing with the muggles. And thank you for everything. So that's my little rant about parties and things, and I hope you found it helpful. Check out the Go Bag video, because I think that can help too. And we'll get through this. We're just going to brain hack our way through and have a better life than we did before. Thanks.